tucked in you. Hello everyone and welcome to Lockdown. My name is Emma Allsopp and this programme is all about young people from across Northern Ireland coming together to discuss how the pandemic has been affecting their everyday lives. Our discussion focus today is mental health and in particular the mental health of young people and just how difficult it has been for them through these lockdowns. Our three guests today are three secondary school students who are determined to make a difference and tackle head first the challenges posed by depression and the pandemic. Our guests today include Sinéad Heaney from Newry High School, Morgan Shuttleworth from Methodist College Belfast, and Sophia Armstrong from Strangford Integrated College. Now, Sinéad, you are involved in a crisis cafes initiative. So would you mind telling us a bit about that and just what made you want to be a part of such an initiative?
Well, the Crisis Cafes are an organisation across the north of Ireland helping to support young people's mental health and break the stigma. So it's youth-led and it's by us for other youths. I got involved in the Crisis Cafe because I myself, just like many other young people, have struggled with my own mental health. I have also seen firsthand people struggling with their mental health, whether that be friends or my mummy's a foster care, and we see people come through our doors that struggle with their mental health. So there was something about the idea of young people not being heard that really resonated with me, and I really wanted to make a change about that. And when I heard that an organisation like the Crisis Cafe were coming to some places local as Newry for me, I jumped on it straight away and contacted them and availed to become an ambassador for them. And from becoming an ambassador and attending these cafes, I've actually been sat on the young advisory panel just in the past month or two, which was a fantastic achievement, and I'm really happy to be sat there.
What type of issues would the crisis cafes tackle?
Well, any issues that young people may face, that's the idea of it. It's called the Crisis Cafe because a crisis can be different, varying from people to people. So a crisis to you could be something big. You could be struggling with your mental health, genuinely need to talk to someone, or a crisis could be forgetting your homework or chipping your nail or a day just not going right for you. That a crisis, there's no label saying how big a crisis is. It's personal to everyone, which is why the idea of the cafe was to it to be quite universal and not necessarily you go. There's two types of cafe, and it's not necessarily that you go as a drop-in sort of session that you need to see someone. And you could also go just to make friends, which there's 2 different days for it. You could just go to on a Thursday night and you could socialise and do a bit of homework if you wanted to, have a bit of fun. There's no real pressure to open up about these crises. It's more about just a distraction.
Okay, so shall we watch a video on the crisis cafes?
The Crisis Cafe is a safe and social setting. It's a non-clinical environment where young people can seek support.
We have 2 cafes up and running. We've one in October in Silverbridge and we have one in Newry.
A safe place for young people to come and talk about their mental health.
It allows young people to socialise with other young people going through the same thing. It allows them to relate with each other.
We're hoping to change attitudes,
to build connections, to reduce the stigma regarding mental health.
You can come and talk to professionals, or you can come and talk to our young people. Any issues or problems you want to talk about, we're here for that.
Young people find it quite difficult to seek mental health support.
The Crisis Cafe is needed more than ever because people are feeling alone, particularly having to isolate.
There's even more reason for young people to be stressed these days. Exam pressure and during COVID making it even harder.
Okay, Sinéad, so obviously given the fact that we are in a lockdown, the whole face-to-face element of the crisis cafes unfortunately can't happen at this time. So have you been able to use other means to operate?
The cafes have totally switched to a virtual basis, which was may seem quite difficult, but by what we're doing now, it's been totally achievable and very, very successful. So the likes of the drop-in help is still available via one-to-ones, whether that be on Zoom or via your telephone. There still is the professionals there to talk to you, especially because now that mental health is at an all-time high and young people are struggling very much so with the isolation and pandemic, etc. They also have included the elements of the Friendship Cafe very much so, with the fact that they've got Zoom programs, there's Boxercise, there's programs on the psychology behind sleep, there's creative writing programs, and actually before lockdown, myself and another musician from the cafe had arranged to do a concert, but obviously that couldn't take place because of coronavirus, so we decided to take that on virtually, and we had an Instagram live 2 weeks ago which had lots of young musicians. Myself and the other musician both played and co-hosted it, and had young musicians come on and play from the comfort of their own homes. So it was that little bit of like element of performance again, which we're missing out on very much so.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sinead. So, Sophia, how have you noticed your friends or other young people in the pandemic, and how has it affected their mental health?
I think definitely, like during the pandemic, particularly now we're on lockdown number 3. People have definitely been struggling a lot more. Like during the first lockdown, it was a bit tedious, and now it's kind of getting to the point where people are really fatigued with it. I know that I have friends that have unfortunately taken the route of trying to attempt, and it's definitely come to the point where young people are at a crisis. There was already a mental health crisis in Northern Ireland, and now looking at it from a pandemic perspective, it really has changed things and meant that young people are struggling more than ever. And schools, unfortunately, aren't able to utilise mental health services and give them to young people because we aren't seeing them on a day-to-day basis. It is a case that you're online learning all the time now.
Yeah, and now, Morgan, you are actually the mental health officer of the Secondary School Students' Union NI. And I'm aware that you and your team have released a report on young people's mental health throughout the pandemic. And I was hoping you could tell us what was the most surprising conclusion that you came to in regards to young people's mental health at the moment.
I think a lot of it was expected. We were already very aware that there was sort of a mental health epidemic across Northern Ireland, even pre-COVID-19. Suicide rates for men were 3 times higher than that in the rest of the UK, twice as likely for women. So we were already very aware of the issues that were there. I think what surprised us most was the counselling services across schools. In the survey, which got over 2,000 replies, there was a question rating, asking people who have used the counselling services in their school to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, and 173 people rated it a 1 out of 10, and only 33 people rated it a 10 out of 10, and I think that speaks for itself.
And what sort of reaction have you got from the report? Have you heard from any local politicians around it?
It's been a fairly good reaction. We launched the report at an online event, of which there were 5 MLAs from the 5 main parties, and Siobhan O'Neill, the mental health champion, also attended. And I think the politicians have definitely taken on board the recommendations and the statistics in the report, and they're definitely supportive in us as well as Stormont sort of moving forward with mental health support in schools.
And do you feel that this report will lead to fundamental changes in the Northern Irish education system?
I do, yes. I think the recommendations are definitely doable. It's not, too much of an ask for the Department of Education to provide guidance on how schools should run their counselling. It's little things like that that the government need to take steps in order to achieve better mental health altogether in Northern Ireland.
Now, Sophia, you are also an executive member of the SSUNI, and you have a particular interest in shared education, which unfortunately was a victim of the pandemic. And I suppose, tell our viewers today, how did you feel about that, knowing that this year there would be no shared education programmes available?
I think definitely, because I go to an integrated school, I experience shared education almost on a daily basis. But my school's also involved with different other schools that do shared education projects, and obviously being involved with TBUC and the EA in the past, I've always grown up knowing shared education and being heavily involved. And I think finding out as soon as the pandemic kind of hit schools and we were sent off to online learn, it really took a toll on me, as a lot of other people with groups I've been working with. The fact that we weren't able to talk to people that normally we wouldn't have talked to anyway, but it's building relationships across a community that were completely broke down by the pandemic. Unfortunately, looking at it now, stepping back and looking at what the situation was, Peter Weil was given 50 million a year to help with integrated education and shared education. And in 2017, only 3 million of that was used and the rest was handed back to the Treasury. So looking at that, we could utilise that resource in such a different way to help with shared education. So what I was hoping to do is run a working group based on having young people have their input on shared education instead of having someone up and above. dictating what we do in shared education. It's about what actually young people want to do and what they want to see happen. Like, there's only so many times you can learn about World War II and World War One and kind of get an insight in that. What do we want to do with shared education? How we want to see it move forward in a more progressive way?
Yeah, so how do you propose that we fix this and get to this so young people have a bigger say in the syllabus?
I believe personally that Peter Weil should have like a youth panel to be able to discuss shared education and other issues like that with. Like, it's very clear that young people have been definitely taking the back seat in those decisions.
Yeah, now, Sinéad, you are actually involved in one of the few shared education projects going on in the minute. So could you tell us a bit about that?
I suppose to be involved with politics and action is quite an honour, because obviously there is that shortage of shared education at the minute, in regards to the pandemic, obviously, and it's quite heartbreaking because that I feel very lucky that I have that element of to be able to still come on to our collaborative ultra classes and to be mixing with other teachers and other students who like have the same views as like as us, and we all are able to like come to terms and do projects together. And there is that sort of sense of, although we're here in isolation and we're not really seeing each other, it is kind of a chance to sort of mingle with people that we would never really like talk to on the outside world, and it's a great chance to like make friends. And obviously social media is a massive thing at the moment, especially now because of the pandemic. So you could be going on to them collaborative ultra classes and there's people you've never spoke to before, and then all of a sudden you are on Snapchat with each other or Instagram, and it is that idea of friendship.
And if I could direct a question to all three of you now, how do you feel that the pandemic has affected your own mental health and your own well-being?
I think it's definitely taken its toll on everyone. During the first lockdown, there was a sense of, oh, it's nearly summer. This will only last a few more weeks. So people were optimistic that with the good weather, it was bearable for people. But this lockdown and the last one especially, because just the few things sort of like it being, wintry and dark and cold, and mixed with, when is this going to end? It's definitely taken its toll on people.
I think definitely from my perspective, like I had mental health issues before lockdowns even started, and now going into the third one, it's like a never-ending cycle that it's never ending at all. Like, it's completely, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And now with the sort of dates that we're getting, we're definitely coming to an end. But it was just the fact that I work in retail as well, having that sitting, and then people going whenever retail opened up again, oh, it was sort of retail's fault for the pandemic then taking a number of people's lives. It was like you were being blamed for it, and it was definitely very hard to have that on your conscience.
Yeah, I agree with Sophia and Morgan very much so. It has really impacted young people especially, and I know personally I have struggled with mental health before, and there was a while there where I wasn't and I was doing really well, but from the pandemic it's kind of been like a sense of like a relapse, and it's really unfortunate because I know that much like myself, that nearly every other young person is struggling with their mental health, and it's sad because we don't have that opportunity to get out and to improve our mental health or things like that there. But I think that the level of optimism now with the vaccination and stuff, it's kind of like, oh well, maybe, but it just kind of seems that this idea of chopping and changing, and yeah, we've been told now we had the vaccine since just before Christmas, and that was all great and good, but now there's things like our exams were cancelled just days before we were due to sit them, and then now there's things like we don't know when we're going to go back to school. We're kind of left in the dark as young people. We don't understand what's going to be happening with our lives at the minute, and it's very like this one minute and it's a different the next, and it's really, really confusing to try and keep up with it.
If I could just say a massive thank you to our guests, Morgan, Sinead and Sophia, for coming on to speak about such an important topic during this time, and also for showing young people that it's okay not to be okay, but we've also given them initiatives and different things that they can avail of, such as the crisis cafes. So Gara Mailgit and Lockdown was brought to you by Politics in Action.